Rev up your engine! The truth about a real new Subaru. Well, it's got 20,000 miles on it now. First of all, a lot of people are worried about blowing head gaskets in Subarus. That's the past. Yes, you can learn from the past. The newer Subarus, for well over a generation and a half, don't really have head gasket problems. And some of the older WRXs, if you go back a few years, they had internal engine problems. The engines would blow and people had to replace them. It's the stupid beauty cover, which he's already taken the clips off, and we'll get rid of the leaf on the intercooler. It's a boxer 4-cylinder engine. Now, like I say, decades ago they blew head gaskets. It's not a problem they have now. Personally, I'm not a fan of turbocharged engines because they do strain the engines more. But from my experience with these Subarus, the main engine problems I personally see as a mechanic is guys get these and they try to bump them up even higher than they already have. And that's a big mistake if you want long life. Now, in the case of this turbo, I'll give you the perfect example of how they work. He drove this thing over here going 85 miles an hour in a highway, and he got 29 miles a gallon, right? Which, for a small car, isn't great. It's not horrible. At the same time, driving it slow and normal on the highway, he once got 44 miles a gallon. That's a big 29 to 44, right? It's the same car, the same engine, and it's turbocharged. You drive conservatively, the turbocharger rams more air into the engine, and it's actually more efficient. So it can get better gas mileage. Behind the wheel in this thing, with a 6-speed standard transmission, odds are you're going to be shifting like a bat out of Hades, driving like a lunatic, and getting worse gas mileage. That is the truth of turbocharged cars. That's why many cars are turbocharged these days. On paper, for the EPA, they get better gas mileage. But if you drive them hard, you do not. Of course, if you drive it like a maniac, everything's spinning faster. The engine will wear out faster. But if you drive it conservatively, they can still last quite some time. Now, this will never last as long as a normally aspirated non-turbo engine. But from my experience with these Subarus, the turbochargers are pretty well made, and generally, you get 150,000 miles. The turbo might go out a little after that, but you know, that's still a pretty long lifespan. Though, if you're a cheapskate like me, you would not buy a turbo because you'd want the engine to last and last and last. And I've seen non-turbo Subarus go 250, 300,000, and they were still running fine. Granted, they're a lot slower. The boxer engine only puts out a certain amount of horsepower, and that's why they throw the turbos on them, so that they can be a lot zippier. And this is a pretty zippy car. But you can see it's a well-designed turbo. It's got a huge intercooler. Leave it alone. The engineers have figured these things out pretty good. They don't have the head gasket problems that they used to have. Don't chance it by putting crazy modifications on something that's fast enough already. Now, the owner of this car says it's the best mistake he ever made, because he went to a Subaru dealer and he told me he wanted a standard. This was the only car they had on the lot that had anything near. He wasn't particularly looking for a WRX, but he loves driving it. It's all-wheel drive, like all Subarus except for their BRZ little race one, and he lives in Pennsylvania. So, does he get stuck in the snow? No, he doesn't get stuck in the snow. Although someone's been backing into things here. But you want to learn something about all-wheel drive and snow, it came with regular tires, not snow tires. And the reason that's bashed in a little is because he drove this in big snowstorms in Pennsylvania, and he said he kept bashing into all the snow drifts. He said this all-wheel drive was useless without snow tires, which I have talked about. He obviously didn't watch that video of mine. It's traction and snow that matters. You get heavy-duty tread and snow tires, you're going to have traction in it. And he was obviously going in pretty deep snow, because I had a guy the other day come with just a front-wheel drive car, and he lived in Ohio, and he said he never even put snow tires on, and he drove it around. Obviously, he got a little bit more snow in Pennsylvania than the guy got in Ohio, because you get in deeper snow, you got to have snow tires. You can't get away with just having regular tires. And of course, this is an all-wheel drive vehicle. So, if you want it to run correctly, you gotta buy 4 snow tires for this baby. You can't just buy 2. If you got a front-wheel drive, you can put your snow tires on the front. But all-wheel drive, you can mess up the all-wheel drive system if you got different sized tires. So, you would have to buy 4 snow tires instead of 2. He didn't buy any, and he slid all over the place. And now this is January, and he still hasn't put snow tires on it yet, so he didn't even learn from his own mistake. So for what you get, if you baby it, these things definitely can last. For $29,000, it's got 268 horsepower. It will be a fast little car to drive around. There's no arguing that. For that kind of money, I do say don't beat the heck out of it, because the more you spin that turbo, the faster your engine's going to wear out. So we'll look inside the door here. It was made in Japan. Now, you notice here they don't say, but see that J? That means it was made in Japan, which is what you want. So we'll get inside, and he's kind of short, so there we go. It's manual, and it won't break. It's simple. We'll start her up. Turn off the radio. Now, this is a more aggressive Subaru. Kind of medium, the back. Not gigantic room, but not totally tight. The main thing, this is a driver's car. 6-speed, you can definitely see the tach. He's got 20,000 miles on it. He hasn't had any problems yet, of course, other than running into snowbanks with balding tires. And as I said, now it's a turbo and it's got dual exhaust. So, unlike the kind of strange noises that most Subarus make, this one makes a rather pleasing sound. It's a typical boxer engine. They run relatively smoothly, but they have a unique sound. The idle's going down now because it's warming up. And you can see, pretty easy to work on. There's a lot of working room on this thing. Easy access. It's a small engine, stuck in a reasonably large space. You want my advice about Subarus? Never, ever buy a 6-cylinder Subaru boxer engine. They have had so many problems with those engines throughout the years, and they continue to have problems with them. They went for a bigger displacement, and it bit them in the rear end. Valves were eaten. The lifters clack like mad. They just are not very good engines. Boxer engines are never insanely high horsepower for their size. They just aren't. And with 250 plus in this thing, that's all you need for a car this size. The Subarus that do have the 6s, like I say, I would stay away from them. They don't put them in these, but any of them that they do, if you're smart, you want to be wise with your money, don't buy one. They just don't hold up. We'll go into the refuse pile here, put the beauty cover back on. Kind of a small panel, but I mean, it's sort of an economy car, so you kind of expect that. He says it's jinxy, does weird stuff. Got a little bitty backup camera. You can see, I'm nothing great, but they have to put them on by law, so. As he said, this is a 2022, but the technology is 2015 on this. And you can hear it definitely sounds like a Subaru engine. That's the noise they make, only it's a little louder. It's got a more aggressive exhaust system on it. He hasn't changed anything, though. It's all stock. Visuals, the front's fine, but I do have to say, backwards, I can see how he hit snowdrifts because you really have a very blind spot rear end. You better learn where the rear end of this car is if you're driving it, because you can't see what the heck is behind you under there. So really, this is one of these cars that you could really go with the 360-degree camera, so you could see what the heck's going behind you. You might not even care about the sides, but you'd want to know what's going on behind you because you got no idea. And out we go into the countryside to our little drag strip here. We'll come to our little stop, and we'll see what this 250 plus horsepower thing can do. Get a lot of gas, here we go. Hey, it's got some horsepower. He actually is just learning how to drive a standard transmission, and really, he's not doing that bad of a job. This thing is a little rocky. Low enough to the ground that they handle really well in the twisties too. Now the owner did show me one thing though. I mean, this is a new car, and the screws have come off on the armrest, and it's broken, so maybe they could have built that a little bit better. The cigarette lighter doesn't work anymore. To give a little human interest story, he actually lived in this car for a couple of months with his cat. The cat isn't making any comment though. But it was in the summer in Pennsylvania. He's not insane. He didn't do it in the middle of the winter. He did it in the summer when Pennsylvania is a rather pleasant place. Now, he actually had ulterior motives in buying this because his ultimate plan is to turn it into an overlander. He wants to raise it up, put big tires on it, and put a camping platform on the top and go all around the country camping. It is all-wheel drive. Subaru makes probably the best all-wheel drive system in the world in terms of how it works and how it doesn't break down. That's one thing they do not have problems with. Their all-wheel drive systems are excellent all-wheel drive systems. Sure, there's fancy ones, Audi and stuff, that can do more, but in terms of what it costs, how long it can last, and the practically no maintenance is needed other than changing the fluids every once in a while, they're pretty bulletproof all-wheel drive systems. So, future, this thing will come back as an overlander with a camper on top of it. I'm not big on modifying vehicles because I like them the way they are, but of course, you're going to turn this to an overland camper. That's pretty interesting, because if you're going to buy an overlander camper, you're going to pay a fortune, right? And if you're going to start modifying the stuff yourself, hey, when you drop the seats, you got a lot more room inside. That would be an interesting project. The trunk has enough space for 4 full-size tires, so it could be a serious off-roader, you know? And do realize he bought a standard transmission for the fun and the speed. I definitely, positively am not a fan of Subaru automatic transmissions. They have had too many problems in the past for me to ever suggest somebody buying a Subaru that has an automatic transmission in it, especially a CVT transmission. But this doesn't have an automatic or a CVT. So, though most Americans, 96% of them, only drive automatics and CVTs, so most people, they're not going to even think about buying a standard transmission car. And yeah, as you saw, the interior stuff kind of broken, and already the plastic, the screws came out, and he hates the navigation console because he says it's real glitchy. It's like 2015 technology in a 2022 car, but of course you can put your own Android in if you want. As a transportation car, it's pretty solid. You're not getting all the bells and whistles that you expect from other cars, but then again, you're only paying $29,000. And this one was $29 because it's loaded with everything. You can get it for like $26 if you price around and get them with less things on it. You don't see that many cars around anymore. Any sedans. A 4-door sedan, I think a lot of people still want to get 4-door sedans, and they probably sell quite a few of these things to younger guys like him that want to have a little zip, get good gas mileage, but still have a car that drives like a car and doesn't drive like an SUV. And of course, doesn't get the horrible gas mileage that an SUV gets either. Don't listen to any of the BS about gas mileage on SUVs rated by the EPA. Almost every single one I get, it gets much lower in the real world than it does on the EPA estimates. The SUVs are big, they're square, they're high up in the air. They are not efficient. It's tumbled all over the place because they're high. They're relatively squarish. They're not efficient machines to drive down the road. Everybody seems to want one, but you want a sedan, you might think about one of these. Though on the plus side, I do have to say, the emergency brake is real. It's not with electric parking brakes, it's an actual mechanical one. This Subaru may have been through the washing machine, but it came out the other ends with a few dents and a few dings, but it's still running perfectly fine. And as he said, it's the best mistake he ever made. And yes, he's not married, he's single with just a cat, so he can't say the biggest mistake he made was getting married, because he's not married. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.